Right. Father and son relationship. He'll be sharing with us. His name is Ambassador Omoba Adesoji Oluwashola. I just quickly got his profile. So let me see if I can try. Yes, being born away from one's tribe, resident. I'm not too sure that is the beginning of this profile. Okay, yes. So, work experience across diverse field and a passion for a true representation of his people has been the driving force behind Omoba Adesoji Oluwasanya Elijah Talabi. Ambassador Olushola Adesoji worked in the capacity of an assistant band director in pioneering music group of Nigeria's Security Civil Defense Corps, gained experiences in the financial and other corporate establishment, and went through innumerable trainings within and outside Nigeria on security, information technology, cultural and cross-cultural programs. He is equipped with several qualifications, accolades, and a wealth of experience. He caught the vision to represent to the world the true essence of African culture and all that it embodies, making use of every available media tools. As a result, Free Thoughts Global Communication Limited was birthed in South Africa and further registered in Nigeria. He derives pleasure from reading, traveling, and making music and networking. So, allow me now to welcome our wonderful brother, which I'm not too sure. Are you here? Ambassador Adesoji Talabi.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Yes.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whichever way or where you're listening or you're hearing me from.
Can you open your camera?
Okay.
Yes, please, because we want to see who is speaking to us. Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Like our mother, our queen, has said this morning with the brief introduction, she did mention about me. Sorry, a little point of correction. My name is Omoba Adesoji, not Adeshola.
Shola. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Talabi.
Okay.
Yeah, this morning, the topic we have before us, or what we're supposed to talk about, is the role or the relationship between the father and a son, which goes a very long way, which is a very crucial, would I say, very crucial topic that affects the society. Now, we need to understand that the relationship between a father and son goes far beyond the love and affection of a typical parent-childhood relationship. It is a cornerstone of a boy development and his future. The role of a father in son's life can be divided into 3 stages. 1, a provider. What do we really mean by a provider? Having a child, these days, if we watch typically what happens within the society, you discover that most parents at a very tender age have thrown their children outside the street to hawk because they don't really have one way or the other to bring them up. But one thing you must understand is that you are exposing them to danger. As a provider, the financial part of it, the clothing part of it, it's a necessity. You need to put clothes, you need to put food on their table for them. But by the time you send them out at their tender age, and that is why you find out that 1,001 children are on the streets today, hawking either pure water, biscuits, and other things. So a major role the father has to play in a child's life is providing the primary resources for him, in charge of the financial sources, protection, and security. By sending out the kids so early at a very tender age, you are not providing security for them. For instance, while they are hawking, God forbid, a car knocks the child down. You can see at that process, you have not provided security for that child. Because on a good day, if you have made provisions for how the child gets food on the table, or you clothe him, or you've been able to, give some educational knowledge to him, the healthcare thing, I don't think the child is supposed to be found on the street. Now, secondly, is that the impact in the child is very, very important. I digress a bit. A story I heard or I met was kind of like the story of Tony Anini, who was a known criminal in Nigeria then in the early 80s. If you listen to his story very well, how he started and how he became a criminal, he was like, the father was a military person. So each time the father comes home, he comes home with a gun, you understand? And when he comes home with a gun, the way he discharged, the way, he cocks the gun and other thing, the child does learn every time. So there was a particular time the father was not around. The boy picked up the rifle, he cocked the gun. He did just the same thing the father did, and he got used. By that way, he got himself inculcated into armed robbery. But if the father had used another means to, probably by what the last speaker said, encouraging him on what to do, talking to him about education and so many other things like that, he wouldn't have found himself in that situation. Secondly, is that most fathers don't have time to have a chat with their children, because the way the thing is that the child decides on what to do. Of course, he has his own opinion on what he or she wants to practice. The father is just like supposed to be a guide. But in some instances, there is a saying the Yoruba says that what the father sees on top of the tree, the child does not see. And that's why you find out that in some instances, there are things some children wants to do, but it might not pay them. It will be, how do I explain? It might cost and have work for that person. For instance, a child tells you he wants to be a musician, or what you see happening basically in the society now. A child tells you he wants to be a musician, and the father tells you can never be a musician, that it is not a good person that is a musician, or a musician does not make it in life. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. It tells you that the musician cannot make it in life. But one thing you don't understand is that they see that there are other roles or there are other things you can do better than a musician. Am I communicating? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
you are communicating. Yes.
Yes. So in that instances, as a father, you are supposed to be as a guide. And you discover sometimes this profession we are talking about, or the kind of example we are trying to give, is that you thinking that the child will not make it in life. It might be the role, how do I explain? The way God has destined each child is quite different. And at the end of the day, the child might end up being the role model of the family. Now, one other thing we also need to discuss is that the manner and behavior of the father, the way the father behaves, is a replicable example of what the child speaks. For instance, if the father is somebody who does yell or bully the mother, is that you are already creating an example for the child. The child sees it as it's a real, how do I put it? That's a normal thing for somebody to do. So in doing this, it becomes a problem for the child. Now, from the child's beginning, you need to put the child at a guide, especially when the child is in the elementary school. If he goes to school and he comes back home with somebody's thing that is not his, you should learn to tell the child that this thing you have done is not right. It is bad. Because once you don't correct that child, it becomes a problem. And if he continues that way, he sees it as reality. Then you must have time again to speak the word of God into the child. Because these days you see so many things happening within the streets, within everybody, have time to discuss. But this jet age we have now, you discover the children will be telling you that you are old school. What do you know? There are so many things you don't know because of the impact media is creating in their life, the impact of kind of friends they keep within the society. You understand what I'm saying? And even in their different schools, what they learn, they have one or two impacts to play in their life. And when they are seeing the negative part, you see it that it does come to affect the child's life or the way the child lives. The father and son relationship is one of the most important relationship a person will never have. Unfortunately, there are many households where a poor father-son relationship exists. This can have an existent impact on both the father and the son. Now, in some instances, most fathers, they leave the house as early as 5 o'clock. They don't really know how do I put it? The children are still sleeping as at 5, or the child is still sleeping as at 5 when he goes to work and he comes back late at night. What I'm trying to say is that there should be a time the father creates for the child for them to be able to share ideas. When our mother queen was talking the other time, most people in terms of football, when they play football and they are done with the match, it's kind of like seeking child's opinion. What do you see about this? What is your opinion? What did you see wrong about that match? That is for those who really like football. It's not all of us who does like football. Like somebody like myself, I don't even do football. I'm not a football person. But even at that, there are other things. There are other things you can sit your child, you can talk to your child about, you can encourage him, you understand and do. And basically now, if you look, and if you are a kind of father who does this Yahoo thing, if you see the latest trend in town now, it is this Yahoo stuff, Yahoo Plus and other things. Recently, if you look at, like the last speaker said, the impact of media, it depends on the kind of person you're bringing in or as a speaker or what you are publishing. Recently, the Nigerian government, I think, made a ban on films that has got to do with ritual and ritual making and is it ritual making and money making. If you look at the society today, presently, what really is affecting us, by the time you are looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 states, each time you see any child outside is that they are talking about ritual. They want to get rich because they feel once they are not rich, they cannot be anybody in life. But it is the role of the father, especially if you have not spoken well to the child. And one of the things the father must also do that is important is that he must let the child be contented with whatever he has. Because there's a saying in Yoruba that says, what it simply means is that if the child is not well trained in house, the same thing he does inside the house is what is going to put the family to shame. It's going to put the family to disgrace outside. So financially, if you don't teach your child or if you don't curtail your child very well, especially in the area of spending, if you cannot minimize how you spend, because that's also a very important thing. When he or she or whenever you spend, if you don't teach the child very well, those are the kind of children you discover that by the time you give them the 20,000, once they cannot do, they are looking for a very meager amount. So in that area also, it does affect children between father, and if you are not able to curtail the child, you discover that such child will just derail from whatever role or what you're trying to put the child through. And you must always try to teach your child how to understand. Whenever he or she finds, try to understand the situation at which you are facing or what it is, because sometimes you are willing to do, but it is the spirit is difficult for you to, like, probably in times of money, or the child is requesting, you let him see. It's not as if you don't want to do, but some people see it as if it's how do I explain, he doesn't want to do. You make them understand that there are times there is money, there are times there's no money. So it's not all the time that everything is rosy. Because if you give a child today, now you make him understand that while I'm giving you this now is because I have, and by the time you don't have, he tried to manage within himself. And if you don't teach that child that way, you discover that these are the kind of child that mingle around with area boys around the street. One other thing that is also important is that you must make sure that the issue of education, you hammer it very well. Most children you see hanging around the street, smoking today, drinking today, was because they were not well brought up and they were not well enlightened. Because if that was done, it doesn't mean because a father does not have money to take care of the child to go to a private school, does not mean that the public school will not do what is intended to do. You find out that today, even in the public school, we get more educational upbringing than in a private school. We discovered that the private schools we are talking about these days is where we have the bullying and so many other things. So it doesn't mean because the money is not there, because most children will say, because the father does not have money, he doesn't do this, they have to go to the streets. And the parents also must not encourage at a very early stage street hawking, because once it gets into them, you discover for them to return back to the basis where they started from, it becomes so difficult. So in this course, there is need for the father and the child to be very, very close. And while the father is doing most things, you must put you must allow your child know most of the things you are doing. In case if you are no more, in case if you are sick, it gives him room to understand. By the time he becomes an adult as well, he knows that this rule, this thing is what I'm supposed to do. This thing is not what I'm supposed to do. So he needs to. Then how also you must also teach him when he's getting older to himself, the way he can take care of his family, he can cater for his family. Like I earlier said, if you are the type that bullies or that does, he has one thing or the other he's seen, and he sees it that is like a right. That after all, I've seen my father, he does this, he does that. Always have time to encourage him. Then when you see things that are bad, always try to tell him that this thing you are doing is not good, is not fair, because it's not going to take you anywhere. So I think with the little I have said, I think for now, maybe I would rest my case.
Thank you so much for it's not little, it's powerful, and it is so educative and eye-catching. And also, I like the way you practicalize it, because we need to really know what is going on among our families and children and youth. And I like the way that you've mentioned that our Roman are what we do. People, our children watch us, something like that. I have a very, very good questions to ask you quickly. Sometimes parents tend to buy toys for their children. And as toys, and also buy some kind of movies for their children. In what way, as these toys, I'm not damaging toys or something like that, but I just want to clarify it from you, because we can learn from another person's perspective. Buying guns for the children, and also buying films that they are involving shooting. What can you say about that?
Yes, thank you very much, ma. I knew that was where you were really going to, so I was already prepared for that particular question. Yeah. Well, to me, I don't think it is not advisable for parents to buy toy, either a toy rubber gun or water gun or other things like that. The impact it creates in their life, it's very, very bad. Even while I was growing up, then my mom will say each time she finds us with a toy gun, she dislikes it. Because you see, these days, the jet age we are in now, it's the mindset is very, very different. Now, a toy gun, when a child, for instance, if you are bringing up a child, probably you are teaching the child how to walk. You know, there are steps and gradual steps this child picks. The way he moves, he does. Now, he watches the film or whichever film you use and he sees it that you are shooting. Don't forget that at the early stage of this topic, when I started, I said Tony Anini's father was a military person. He does come home with a gun. And each time the father does discharge and remove the what is it called? He learnt it, and he got to a state that he practiced it. And there was a day he did in the front of the father, according to what we read, and he was beaten. That this is not something you must know. If to me, it's not good for us to buy toy. There are other toy cars and toy things we can buy for our kids. We can buy cars, we could buy swing and some other things, but not to gun. Because you even see the movie they are watching, then it will get to a stage or you get to a day whereby they would want to practicalize what they watch in the film. That, okay, let's just hide behind the door and somebody is coming. And by the time you do that, they see it as it is the right thing they are doing. So most of these films also, they are not encouraged, they are not educating our kids. If I were to be asked, I would say such films should be bounded. And you see, like the other person said, the issue of media now on all social all what is it called? All Android phones. You have YouTube, you find these things there every day they watch. You discover that even these people that does these little kids that does ritual things, you will hear them saying they watched something from Facebook, and it was what they saw from Facebook that they are trying to practicalize. They saw them killing somebody, and that's the reason why they had to go. You can imagine a boy of 18 years luring his girlfriend, killed the girlfriend, cut the head, and put the head in a pot, burning to make money rituals. Where did he get that from? It was from the same movie he watched. So he's trying to practicalize what he has watched in the movie. So I will be, in my own case, I would say it is better such thing are eradicated. Because the more we have these things on the streets, the more the kids learn this thing. And before you know what I'm saying, sometimes you see kids, at their tender age, you see them running after the other one. I'm pursuing this one. I want to shoot this one. And before you know what is happening, they have picked what they are not supposed to pick. And that thing sinks into their head because when it started at the tender age, you never stopped them. And now that they are grown up, you can't take it away from them. So it doesn't have a good impact. It doesn't play a good role in their life.
Yeah, very, very important. And I think sometimes, even when we are trying to guide and protect our own children, they are moving out. We can't isolate them. We can't block their ears not to see. I mean, not
Correct.
to hear. We can't, block their eyes not to see. But it's also going to down to what Mr. Olaniyi said initially,
Okay.
that it depends on the relationship in the house that will determine that. You cannot ask them not to, but you can help them with their mindset.
Yeah.
You can prepare them and bind them in their mindset. Because you can't say that, don't see this one. You want them to be closing their eyes walking on the street? You understand? So they will see all that. But it still depends on the family, what we are feeding the children. It depends on that. What we are feeding them, how we are loving them, how we are caring for them. Because the more we can be close to them, the more we can save them. And for all our industries, I know you are making money. We cannot stop you not to make money. But we can encourage you or advise you to be conscious of what you are producing. And if at all you need to provide something like using gun and other things, there should be an educative section to tell us the importance of using the gun. What is it for? Because sometimes they might only use it. I mean, they might think that, oh yes, the gun is for shooting. Yes, it could be shooting, but who are you shooting? And also, we need to be educating our children as well that, like you said, sir, Ambassador Adesoji, we also need to be letting them know that what they don't have now, they can have in future. So they need to be contented. Sometimes we parents, we try to pretend that everything is okay and just make sure that we give them, yes, we can't give them the best for their education, but they need to also experience life from us, not when they now grow up and face the reality of life out there. So if there is food at home, we give them. And we need to also teach them that the time is coming when the food will be less. The time is coming when you won't be able to get what you want to get now. So you can delay your needs, your want to a certain time. And you can also work hard, because what you work hard for, you will not abuse it. What you work hard for. So for example, if one of your child or even the son, because you are teaching him how to be independent. So if he's looking for trainers and he's got a shoe already, which is very common among us, you can even you can even encourage that person to start saving his pocket money. You want that shoe? Start saving. Don't let it all be that parents give everything they want. So we teach them to save up. Firstly, to wait patiently. Secondly, to be contented at the moment. Thirdly, to save up. Because when they save up and they know how they save up to buy that trainers, they will make use of that trainers. And they will not be in a sense of parents have to buy everything for me. So when we teach them all these principles, it's very, very important. So when they are now growing up or stand on their own or facing life or reality, they will go with this teaching. I like it when you mention that, yes, they don't need to hawk. There's so many things they can do. They don't need to hawk to help their parents or to help themselves. Not at that certain age. At that certain age, they are still babies. So we need to be responsible for them to make sure we give them what they need, not what they want. And that is very important. So on this note, I want to say, Ambassador Adesoji, not Olushola. I know I was thinking of Pastor Olushola when I mentioned your name. So I want to say thank you so much, Ambassador Adesoji Talabi from Brazil. I know
Thank you so much.
we really appreciate
Actually,
it.
I'm sorry, it came unaware. I just got
I
that
know.
message this morning, so I just had to say something. Otherwise, I
Yes,
would have,
but
yeah.
that's not
But I know
something.
in the subsequent,
That
yeah,
is
in the subsequent
powerful.
classes,
Yeah.
yes, I would do better. And
Okay.
I'm sorry that most of the time I ought to have been joining classes, but the problem here is, the way outside the country is, we're out of the house as early as 5. We come back at in fact, I know Queen Mother did not know that as at the time she was messaging me, I was still sleeping. Immediately I saw the message, I said, this is just 6 a.m. So she said, oh, it's already 10 or 11. I said, so please just give me some 30 minutes. Let me get out of bed
I
and join you.
know.
So please, I'm sorry, but I know,
Time difference as well. Time difference.
yeah,
And I
but
do appreciate your time.
no,
I
no
do
problem.
appreciate your
But
time.
by our next class, we'll do better than this. But I
Okay.
just had to say something. Yes, ma'am.
That's
All
something
right.
you say is powerful, sir. It's not
Thank you very
just
much, ma'am.
ordinary, it's powerful.
Mm, mm,
Even if it is 2 minutes, somebody presents themselves,
mm, mm,
even if it's two
mm,
minutes, if that 2 minutes saves lives, it's powerful.
mm.
And what you've said today have saved millions of children and youth. So it's not just something. So we want to say thank you so much. We
And
really
one more thing
appreciate
before we recap, one other thing I forgot that I see that it's very essential or it's very important is that we discover these days, like our mommy said, not quite long, the child has a shoe. Are you getting me? And at the end
Yes.
of the day, he's not done using the shoe. He wants to get 3 other pairs. It's uncalled for. In as much as you still have one you are using. Because at the end of the day, it tells back on either the father or the mother, even if he does have the money. You discover that at the end of the day, if he doesn't now have the money to buy, he now looks for other means
Exactly.
to get that shoe. And by the time he wants to see, or he's looking at the other person that has that shoe, he's telling that person, how much did you buy this shoe? The person is telling him, I bought for maybe a 10,000. How did you get? He would want to look like. So what I'm trying to say is that you must not want to be like what the other person is.
No.
Because where he gets his money from, you don't know where he's getting his money from.
Exactly.
So you should, it still boils back on being contented with what you have.
Yeah. Be contented, be patient, and also don't look at others to get what you want. Get what you need at that moment, not what you want. Because sometimes we've been looking at people dressing up. Maybe that is what they need. Maybe they have to put on their trainers for their sport or for their activities. So maybe that is what they need. So what other people need might be different from what you need.
It differs. Yeah.
It differs. And then we have to also let them know the difference between want and needs. Needs is very important than want. Want to me is like a pleasure. That means to have enough, to have extra. But needs is what you need now for whatever you need it for. So
But
we need
don't
to
you
let them
think
know.
it is, yes, sorry, don't you think it is essential or it is important to make a law that governs the parents' guide towards the child? I'm sorry to have digressed a bit. If you look at UK today now, the way I'm made to understand, they have their laws. The first 5 laws or 6 laws that are very important, they don't joke with children. They don't joke with children. They don't joke with men and with women. Do you understand what I'm saying? Don't you think in a situation like this, it can help eradicate most of this problem we have within the parenthood and the child, the upbringing of the child?
It is. And it is not. The law in UK, there is pros and cons. There is advantages and there is disadvantages.
Okay.
Sometimes when I say disadvantages is that sometimes that law, you might think it's just a piece of paper, just writing, but it's powerful. Law in Britain is very powerful. But then that law can be so extend. I mean, it can be so widen. In a sense, for example, there's a law that says that you cannot abuse your child, or you cannot abuse any child, any children. You understand? Including beating and other things like that. And then the law also says that they have given the power to the children that if this kind of thing is happening in the house, they have the right to call the police. Okay? But the law doesn't know the tradition or the custom of other country.
That culture and their culture. Yeah.
You understand? And there's a level between being abused and being disciplined.
Yeah.
So the law is not,
exactly.
which is not covering. But then taking out that child from the parents to say you want to be taking care of them by social makes it even worse. I mean, when I first came to this country, if a teenager got pregnant, you know, from our country, our culture, it's taboo for a teenager to get pregnant, you know, that kind of thing. But when I first came to this country, if you go to the social services, they will embrace you and encourage you with that pregnancy and also give you house. So that makes others, peers of us, to do the same. And it doesn't help. Until now, they reach a certain place, which I was also in, I was working in one of their hostels. It now comes to a stage that these children, because of their pregnancy and their teenager, will not definitely know how to take care of those children. So in the end, the same government will collect their children and put it on the social services because they are not being cared of properly by their parents that are teenagers. So that's why I said that there's pros and cons of these laws. So until they understand how it works, and then it comes to a stage as well that the government don't have enough money to even cater for them. In fact, the children be given birth to children. How do you say? You give them houses, they cannot even, because they didn't receive the proper discipline from their parents. So definitely the way they will behave will be lavish, isn't it? So they didn't even know how to take care of their own children. I'm talking about these teenagers. So at the end of it all, they can't even pay rent. At the end of it all, they are liability to the government. So you can see, so that's why I say that sometimes it's good to set up the law, but with that law, we also need to look around of what it entails, and also to know the boundary, to know the limitation, and also to study because like Britain now, Britain is not just British, it's not just white people. Britain entered and welcomed all kinds of people from different countries. And these people are coming with their own customs and tradition. So that is by the wayside about that. I hope I've tried to clarify that yes, if we want to now adopt it, for example, in Nigeria, we also need to really research about it, work hard to know how it will work, and other things like that. And I think we need to do more of educating our parents. Some parents don't know. Yes, they might be educated and being a master degree or PhD on a certain specialties or subject, but they might not know how to bring up the children or to build their relationship with their children. They might not know. Because I've learned in a place where they said that, well, I'm so busy, just go and take your toy and play with, or I will buy the most expensive toy for you, or computer or game or something like that. That should not replace the discipline and your relationship with that child. So that one also we need to be bad. We are all learning. We all make mistakes. And because we've made mistakes, we've learned from it. That's why we are sharing it now. I hope I've explained better on that. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us again. I really appreciate your time. And then we need to bring in our last speaker because I thought Professor Karudi will stay with us so that he can share his wisdom with us, but I think he's left. But we still have Pastor Olushola in the ground.